It's good to see you.
Yes, good to see you. All right, so we are live. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Trendy Tuesdays are back. Temporarily, we're going to do once a month for the summer just to keep it fun, have some good topics, and discuss more when we have our lives. So, as usual, I'm joined by Dr. Sophia Yen, CEO and co-founder of Pandia Health. And tonight we're going to be discussing safe sex, especially as we approach summer. Not that people aren't having sex at all times of the year, but I thought it was particularly fitting. More people are getting vaccinated, going on dates, and things like that, which is awesome. But it's definitely a great time to think about your sexual health and that of your partners or potential partners. So, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. My first question for you, which I didn't even have on the list, and I just thought of it today because it was very important, is just what is safe sex? What is something you would consider a safe and healthy sexual relationship?
Yes. So when I think safe sex, it's about not getting diseases as opposed to preventing unplanned pregnancy. And I also think that, sex in general should always be consensual. And I was really excited. I don't know what I just saw, but it was some TV show. And she's like, I absolutely consent to sex. And I was like, this is awesome. In a TV show. Sorry, I can't give credit to whatever TV show it was, but I was very excited. I thought that was great. I fully and absolutely consent. So consent is absolutely important. But in terms of safe sex, generally to protect yourself against disease, if you're having penis, vagina sex, you have to have a condom. There's also abstinence. There's mutual masturbation, though I just on the other talk, we were saying if you have warts on your fingers and you mutually masturbate, you could get warts on your penis or vagina. So you gotta keep that into consideration as well. And so masturbation, abstinence, and condoms are the safest kind of sex out there. But even with condoms, there's a limitation because the condom only covers the penis. I've actually seen some serious contraptions that you can wear, this thing that protects like the pubis and all this part, because I tell people it just protects this part, but this part is like bumping and grinding. And if there's any bumping and grinding, if there's any lesions, you don't want to touch that with your skin, because it could have syphilis. If it has syphilis, it's teeming with syphilis, and you touch it and you can get it, and you lick it. That's the grossest thing, is syphilis of the tongue, because it eats a hole in your tongue, and then it's syphilis. But anyway, and then you could get herpes, you could get warts. The other thing we talked about was you can have crabs. And if you have pubic hair, it can jump from pubic hair to pubic hair. If you don't have pubic hair, then it's less likely. But there's also scabies. But again, scabies can happen to anyone. It's not necessarily sexual. It just likes to start in the private areas and then take over the whole body. And again, any bumping skin, you can transfer all of these kinds of diseases. So another thing I suggest is doing what I call the sex tree. So if you can't ask where that penis has been or that vagina has been, then maybe you shouldn't play with it, because this is you, or this is, we'll go with this is you. These are two partners. And if this person didn't use a condom once with you or practice safe sexual habits with you, do you think maybe this person didn't practice it with this person? And if this person didn't do it with this person, then this person might not have done with this person, and so on and so on and so on. And you just had sex ever with two people, but now you've touched at least 20 people because everybody didn't use it once with somebody. So It's really important, I think, to, be particular about who all you have sex with, and be as safe as possible.
Definitely. And just because you've had sex with one person doesn't mean you need to have sex with everyone. I feel like that's something that people sometimes get into that trap, and they're like, well, like I already had my first time, so now it's not necessarily a big deal, but it is a big deal every time. And if you are someone that wants to have a lot of partners, like that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just having that tree, those ideas in mind is really important. And also I have a feeling, at least in my personal experience and friends of mine, someone who isn't doing that stuff with you, not using condoms, not being honest, they're probably a repeat offender. And then there's more chances of STIs, more chances of just discomfort in general. And you spoke about that mental aspect of safe sex. So maybe you just be friends or something like that, and that's totally fine too. So going off of the same topic, I feel like we should just cover it, get it out of the way. Can you get COVID from having sex? I feel like this is a really hot topic right now, but also something that not a lot of people are discussing. So
yes,
I wanted to bring it up.
I think that we don't have the research to say that you can or cannot get it. I think in general, we don't think you can. However, we have found COVID in semen and we found it in vaginal secretions. And COVID is in the respiratory tract, which is different from the mucosal membranes, but there are mucosal membranes in your mouth and nose, and your vagina is mucosal membranes. So, and your penis is mucosal as well. So, better safe than sorry, I'd say. If you're both vaccinated, you're probably good to go. If you're not vaccinated, then that's a problem. And just in general, like even if you're wearing masks while having sex, what are the odds a mask is fitting correctly? You aren't breathing up or down. You aren't breathing on each other. Some people have said do a doggy style so you can avoid it. But again, you're like puffing it into the air and you're in a closed room. You don't usually leave the door open when you're having sex to air out the room and run the fans on high, right? So just get vaccinated.
It's that simple. And even if one person is vaccinated and the other isn't, I would still say that's not the safest.
Yep.
Because it's still proven that you can get it even if you've gotten the vaccine. You can still spread it. So it's not worth it. And I think that goes into the safe sex aspect. If it's not safe physically and mentally, if you're going to be stressed the whole time, then there's no point. But to solve that, get your vaccine now. Pretty much everyone can get it. So
in the United States,
yes, in the United States, and hopefully in other countries soon. Yeah. But in the United States, yes. So perfect. Glad we covered that early. Got out of the way. So moving on into one of the factors that you mentioned of safe sex, the physical component. As for condoms, I know a lot of people say that a barrier to them buying condoms, other than embarrassment, is price. Condoms are really expensive. So I was wondering if you have any tips for finding cheaper options for that. I know we have our partnership, which we can discuss with One Condoms, but if you have anything else you'd like to speak to for that.
Yeah. So number one would be that it is a national law, Title 10 family planning. So Google Title X, X being the Roman number for 10, family planning clinics. And those places generally give out free condoms because it's in the interest of the country and every state to prevent unplanned pregnancies, but also to prevent sexually transmitted infections, because it's much cheaper to give you condoms than it is to treat gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. And then sometimes syphilis can go on, you don't know, and it goes to the brain, and then it's like crazy expensive and bad on you, right? So on your life and your health. And so the government would much rather prevent sexually transmitted infection. So if you Google Title 10 clinic, those generally are giving out free condoms. Planned Parenthood almost always is giving out free condoms. Your county clinics, those clinics are generally giving out condoms. And then if another tactic would be to buy them in bulk and share with friends, right? So if you get them at Costco or other places, but I would say the Title 10 family planning clinics. And yes, we have a partnership with One Condoms. I'll drop it in the comments where you can get a deal. I think it's like 50% off or something cool like that.
For a whole package too, you get lube as well and different types of condoms. So it's like a sampler. It's a lot of fun. We also did a collab with Lovability. You can check that out as well. They have they actually just released very, very similar. It's like a sampler pack with condoms, lube, and I think it was like a spritz or something, like a safe sex spray just to put on and make you feel good. It's like all natural. So you can check that out as well. We had a collab with Maureen from Lovability a while back. But yeah, anything that makes you feel safe and feel good as well. You can buy a thinner condom that works, but just making sure that it's something that, number one, isn't going to cause infection. If you have a latex allergy, there's other options for that, but also going to be safe in the first place. So, oh yes, Lovability. Thank you. Perfect. Also, you can ask your RA if you were living in a college dorm. When I was an RA, we got
student health.
Yes, student health always had a huge bowl, and when I used to volunteer there, they were gone by the end of the day. And it was actually the best when people actively came up and took them, and it didn't have to be awkward. It was just kind of like cool, like yeah, I'd rather you take them and have a moment of embarrassment than just as you were saying, like a lifetime potentially of an
And
STD.
you shouldn't be embarrassed. You should be proud. You're getting some.
Right, exactly. Like that's great. So
And you're taking responsibility.
hmm I have much more respect for that for sure. Um, yes, definitely. So, next question, a little bit different, going into more of like the mental health communication side. Consent is obviously a really hot topic. There's just a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's complicated for sure. It doesn't have to be, but it kind of has become complicated. So, do you have any tips for communicating with your partner about having safe sex, about making it enjoyable, anything like that, as like a mom and a doctor and a married woman? If you have any like insight on that, that would be great, because I think it's, again, a hot topic, but really confusing sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's really important to, one, anytime you're having heterosexual relations, to know what you would do if you got pregnant. Because it'd be really bad to have discordant ideas like, I'm definitely terminating any unplanned pregnancy. Oh, I want you to keep any unplanned pregnancy.
Right.
And, better to know that before you get hot in the moment and then something happens and then you have to have like some big fight out or war, or verbal or badness. And again, my body, my choice, your body, your choice, but still that other person may feel they have a claim on your body, and better to have that all, discussed up front. So I always say check where the other person stands on abortion and make sure you two are of the same accord, because maybe that person would expect you to terminate, but you actually plan to keep everything that might happen, and that might be a problem for that person. So,
Right.
but again, your body, your choice.
Mhm.
But let's discuss that. And then the sex tree. If you can't ask how many partners have you had and how many partners they've had, then maybe you don't have a good enough relationship that you should be playing with that. Because I say anytime you have sex with that person, you have to assume that you could get pregnant and that this could be a forever relationship. And forever being not until 18, but until that kid dies.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that's how serious I think people should take every sexual relationship. The condom pops, it could be a lifelong relationship. And again, it's up to the person with the uterus in a heterosexual relationship to decide that, or, wherever there might be impregnation or something like that.
Exactly.
And absolutely consent. I think it's so much better sex when you hear yes, 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 than no, 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 no. And
Right.
I think
Or
it's
just
sad.
nothing. Or like lack of answer too is like,
Yes.
that's really not much better.
Yeah. Yeah. You want the all in excitement kind of sex. I like you, you like me, we're into each other kind of stuff. Then like, and hopefully we've trained people to enjoy and not be afraid and not be embarrassed about it, such that they feel they have to like protest when really they don't. Or maybe, porn has messed them up, that they only get horny if they protest, or I don't. And certainly you can role play, and then in that case, you should make sure you have safe words to communicate when it's, you're scared or something bad's going down. So absolutely communication.
Definitely. It's all about there's a video with tea, I'm sure you've seen it, about it's consent, but using the analogy of tea and saying that like, okay, if someone starts making the tea and pouring the tea and the person seems into it, but then they're like, actually, I don't want the tea, that's still a no. And there's no point in prying and continuing, because it's just not going to be enjoyable for either person in the long run. Even momentarily, if it is on one side, it won't be in the long run. So you kind of have to think about that. But that's a really good video. I'll have to find it and put it in the comments if you haven't seen it. It's a good one.
I love that video
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
so
like,
helpful.
yeah.
Because it's just so like, when you think about it like that, it's like, man, this really isn't that hard. But for some reason, I get it, in the moment things can happen and it's difficult. But I mean, yeah, I definitely appreciate all the things that you said about like physical safety and then also like emotional. Are we both into this? I actually saw I don't remember if it was a TikTok or an Instagram about this girl who was saying that this guy on their first date mentioned his views on abortion in the first 5 minutes. And at first she was like horrified. And, the date didn't end up going well, but she was like, honestly, I'm so glad that he did that, because if I had ended up pursuing something, having a sexual relationship, like who knows how that would have ended up down the line. So honestly, like, sure, maybe not in the first 5 minutes, but putting it out there, definitely important.
I think it should be on all your profiles, right?
Yeah.
Coffee meets bagel, all of that.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that was one to look at it. Oh my God, no, it's so true. But there's actually a perfect segue into kind of our last topic, which I think is a great way to close. Birth control, obviously a big thing, and condoms are technically birth control. They're not hormonal, but they are considered a way to prevent pregnancy. So birth control, and they also are the only one that will also prevent STIs. So something to keep in mind. But there's also hormonal birth control: the pill, the patch, the ring, the IUD, the shot. What am I missing?
Implant.
The implant, yes. So with all of those methods, I know everyone is a little bit different, but if an individual is thinking about having sex, being on the birth control in general, and one that you get a period with, because I know some of them you don't get a period, but one that you bleed with, what is a safe way for them to skip their period so that, they can enjoy sex, it's not as messy, you're not messing up the sheets. And obviously this goes for someone who's not having sex either, but how would one go about that?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the hormonal IUD, the implant, and the shot, all of those can result in not having a monthly bleed. And it's really important. It's hard for people to get that if you're not on medication and you're 2 years after your first period, you should get a period every single month. And if you don't, talk to a doctor to look for something: polycystic ovarian syndrome, thyroid, not enough nutrition, tumor, stress, other stuff like that. However, if you're on hormonal birth control, then #periods optional. Mm-hmm. And with the IUD, the implant, and the shot, each person's different. And either you're going to bleed or you're not going to bleed. It just depends on you. However, with the pill, the patch, the ring, you can decide how many periods you have each year. It could be every month, every 6 months, or never, and when you want to bleed. So that when you use the pill, you personally can get out to 3 months, but you got a Hawaii trip in 2.5 months. So you could bleed right before your Hawaii trip so that there's no way you're going to bleed on your Hawaii trip. So that's one way to play the system. Or if you're at my point where I don't bleed at all, as long as I take my pills, then I wouldn't pre-bleed to get that bleed out of the way. I would just go because I've done it for so long and I have no problem with it. But the way you do it on the pill or the ring or the patch, all of these methods have 3 weeks of hormone and then 1 week without. And this 1 week without, it can be sugar pills, or some packs have 3 weeks times 7 and then no last week. And you just got to hang out for 7 days and then start the next pack. But this week without is totally optional. So as long as you keep the hormone going, you won't have a bleed. What triggers the bleed is the fall of hormones. And then 2 or 3 days after is when you bleed. And with the pill, you just keep going with the active pill. So if you look at your pills, most of them will have 3 weeks, one color, and 1 week the other. Just skip this, go straight into the next active pills and just keep going. And then when you have breakthrough bleeding, stop for 5 days, which will drop it and you'll bleed and you'll clean out and then reset the clock and then start again. And for some people, the first time is breakthrough at 3 months, next time it's 6 months, and then you're home free. For some people, just every 3 months. They're just that kind of people. And then some people is every month. But we have 40 different pills that we could try that we should be able to find one that will hopefully get you at least out to 3 months, if not forever. The ring, same thing. You just, it's a little different in that they tell you to take out the ring after the 3rd week and then bleed. But the ring actually has 35 days of medication, and every month has fewer than 35 days. So you can just change it on the 1st of every month. Yep. Or if, again, you're a person who eats up hormones more or something, you could change it every 4 weeks and just change it. And again, if you have breakthrough bleeding, take it out for 5 days, have a bleed, and start a new ring. The patch is the one that we have to have a caveat on. After 12 weeks, the estrogen in the patch builds up to a point where you can get a blood clot and die. So do not go on the patch more than 12 weeks in a row. You can go up to 12 weeks, but we don't recommend more. And again, each woman is different, blah, blah.
Right.
But 12 weeks on average, and you have to bleed after 12 weeks because the hormones have gone too high and we need to just rinse it out of your body. So, but the pill and the ring should be fine for this continuous cycling is what we call. And if you want to do that, please tell your doctor, because your doctor needs to write okay to skip placebo week or okay to skip bleeding week and give you enough pills. Because normally you use 13 packs a year, but if you skip, it could be 15 or 17 packs a year that you're going through. And if your doctor doesn't write it that way, the insurance won't give it to you on time. You won't have enough. It's a big hassle. So just if you're going to do this, make sure you tell your doctor so your doctor can write it properly.
Exactly. And if you are in one of our states that we offer to, we have 10 or 11 now.
13. We're up to 13.
It's Arizona, California, Florida, Colorado,
Nevada,
Georgia, Illinois, Michigan, Wyoming, Washington. Tennessee we just got.
And Pennsylvania.
Yes. And hopefully still expanding. So if you're in one of those states, again, you can check on our website. I just kind of said them all. But if you're in one of those states, you can set up a consultation. We have expert doctors, Dr. Yen included, but also even if you're not matched with Dr. Yen, all of our other providers are great, and they can help you get that prescription. So I actually didn't know this, but I am remembering. So we don't send the patch or the ring, but we prescribe them. But the pill we ship to all 50 states. So even if you're not in one of those 50 states, you can still get it through Pandia Health, myself included. I live in DC, but I still use Pandia Health. So yeah, it's really nice. And you can get it shipped. But if you don't want that, or you think something else is better for you, we can still help you. We have a lot of resources on our website. And if you do set up a consultation with one of our doctors, they can kind of help you navigate that decision. And you would then share that information like, hey, you know what? That skipping my period sounds really great. I think I want a birth control where I can do that. And they can kind of help you get it set up. Because it's confusing. It definitely is. But we try to make it easier. We do the best we can, at least. I mean, it's still, there are a lot of factors, but yeah, again, we have a lot of resources. I usually mention this at the beginning, but we're doing it at the end.
We try to make sure no one runs out of birth control pills on our watch. And with every package, we have a public service announcement like, hey, did you know if your BMI is 26 or greater, Plan B and its generics not going to work for you, and you should use Ella. And if your BMI is 35 or greater, then you only have the IUDs as an option. And then, did you know that the pill doesn't make you gain weight in most cases? But again, every person is different. If you notice every time you take this pill, you gain weight, know that there are 7 other progesterones that you could try, and probably 1 or 2 other doses. Sometimes a lower dose will have, obviously fewer side effects. So those, just know that with the pill, there's at least 40 different ones that you could try. So if one doesn't work, there are a bunch of others.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually in a group on Facebook. It's like women supporting women. And a lot of people post about like their birth control and things like that. And it's actually really nice to see people in the comments being like, because this group is all women. And so a lot of people in the comments will be like, hey, you didn't like that one. Well, I'm taking this one and I love it. So maybe like talk to your doctor about that. And it's really nice to see, number one, women supporting each other like that, but also that there really are so many options for you. And just something else to note is that for bone density, if you're under 30, I know we recommend, and most doctors recommend going on something that's 30 micrograms of estrogen or more. Something I learned from Pandia. I did not know that. I was on birth control that was under 30 micrograms, but now we're good. I learned my lesson. I have something new. So we're good.
Yay. That is really what we pitch at Pandia Health, is expert care, by expert doctors. And we are the only doctor-led, doctor CEO company in the birth control field. And I've personally written 2,000 birth control prescriptions and learned from that. And we are also the only academic doctor-led company in this space. So I, come from an academic background. I've been published in many different papers, but I like to look at the data and be like, hey, this pill is good for Latinas, African Americans, and Asians, but this pill is not good for Latinas, African Americans, and Asians, and in fact, give them a lot of breakthrough bleeding. But this is what we were taught in med school, and realizing that most of medicine, unfortunately, is based on, I don't know what it is for female, but it was the 70-kilo white male.
Right.
And that doesn't apply for anybody who doesn't fit that. And so at Pandia Health, we ask at the end of your questionnaire, please go to the end, if you'll fill out an optional ethnicity one. And so we're trying to correlate ethnicity with side effects so that everybody will have the least amount of side effects when you start your first one, because we want you to do well. And why should anybody ever suffer any side effects if we can avoid that?
Right, exactly. No, and that's really interesting. I feel like there's not a lot of research on that right now in terms of how different people react. Also, I've recognized on a lot of them, I'm Ashkenazi Jewish, and I've noticed that that's on a lot of health questionnaires now. So I guess that has something to role, which is really interesting. But again, it's just kind of like genetics, generational things. But it's really fascinating. So again, just because something doesn't work for you, even though it worked for someone else, doesn't mean you're screwed from birth control. It's just something that you might just need to play around with. And that's why I'm really glad we have expert doctors at Pandia. And again, if you're not in one of those states, you can still check out our website. We literally have a detailed description on I think every pill. If not every pill, we're getting all of them. Because I know we added Vienva, the newer ones. So yeah, if you're curious, you can look at that. We have all the side effects, all of that on our website. You can just type in the search bar, whichever one you're looking for. That's pretty much it. But just some takeaways from what we talked about in terms of getting condoms. You can look for Title X. Would you say Title X clinics or
Title 10 clinic is what it's called. Yeah, in every state. Obviously, the more conservative states might have fewer states or they've rejected those funds, but it is there. And California, being a more liberal state, goes up to 200% of the federal poverty level. It's up to each state if they want to supplement and boost it up or not. And so California has chosen to do that.
Oh, amazing. Yes. DC's not there yet, but we'll get there. Statehood first. And then but yes, so you can get condoms for free. And if not, I really like that idea of buying them in bulk at Costco. Just because it's brand name doesn't necessarily mean it's any better. So just something to keep in mind. Also making sure to communicate openly with your partner. And not only is that going to create safety physically, but also just emotionally, I think you'll have a better connection with honesty. And I think if you were to ask other people, even if they might not admit it at first, it is something that I think we learn over time. And then lastly, in terms of skipping your period and just having comfortable sex, if period sex is not something you're into, if you are, more power to you, totally fine. But if not, you can skip your period. Again, some birth controls you might not bleed depending on your body. And then other types like the pill, the patch, and the ring, minus some caveats with the patch, you can never get a period or choose when you're going to get it. And there's a lot of autonomy in that. So
power.
Yes. And that's something that we really inspire too. We actually released a quote that you had in your podcast with Liberty for Her about, I think the quote was women deserve a place at the table. And if women aren't there to make decisions, then they shouldn't be made. And I was that's so true. So it kind of all relates. And if you're uncomfortable with something, definitely it's okay to share that. In fact, it's necessary to share that with your partner because a moment of discomfort could lead to something way more beneficial in the future than a child, an unwanted child.
Or disease.
Or something of that nature.
Or trauma.
Yes, or trauma, exactly. So those are my takeaways. Do you have any last final words you wanted to add? Anything you wanted to plug for this month? We'll be back again in July. So any last minute things?
I think the other thing that we need to quickly mention is if you're 26 or younger, you should get checked once a year if you're having heterosexual relations, but also men who have sex with men. Women, the vagina with vagina, you don't. That's what I love about vagina and vagina. There's no pregnancy, there's no sexually transmitted infections. But if one of the vaginas have ever played with a penis, then that's where disease comes in. And so then you need to get tested. But if neither vagina has ever touched any penises or been raped or anything, then you don't have to get checked. But for everybody else, you have to get checked once a year for at least chlamydia. And oftentimes we throw in gonorrhea. And then we always suggest HIV once a year. But know that there are limitations to sexually transmitted infection testing. And an HIV test only reflects what that person was 6 weeks ago, because it takes 6 weeks to build up enough antibodies for that test to turn positive. So unless you've been with that person 24/7 watching their penis or vagina for 6 weeks, yeah, they were negative 6 weeks ago, but you don't know what they are today. So I just assume everybody has every disease under the sun, and use a condom if you're having heterosexual or homosexual men have sex with men, or we discussed on the previous one, toys. So if you have two vaginas, but you're using a toy and one person had touched a penis at some point and caught a disease, then you touch here and you touch there and you just diseased everybody. So just use a condom. And there are good condoms out there with different thicknesses. One condom in our package deal, bit.ly.com or bit.ly/capital Pandia, capital one, together one word, has some thin condoms with lube, and then a whole variety pack, and then a bunch more lube.
Yes, and they're very good. They're very fun too. So we love that. Anyway, that is pretty much it. Thank you so much, Dr. Yen. As always, this was really great and informative. Thank you to everyone for joining. Shout out to my dad. I saw he made a comment. He wrote #getting some. Oh my God. And I know I saw Happy on here. Jessica, shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave us a comment. We'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And you can also check out our website. We have a whole FAQ. So that is it for tonight. We'll be back, I believe, July 2nd, whatever the first Tuesday in July is, with another fun topic. So stay tuned. In the meantime, stay safe and have a great evening. Can't wait to see you again soon.